remember standing in the ballroom that night, watching the chandeliers sparkle like diamonds above our guests. 10 years of marriage deserved celebration, and I had planned every detail myself. The silver roses matched our wedding colors. The string quartet played our song. Even the champagne glasses were engraved with our initials, ready for the toast. But when the waiter handed me my glass, I froze. The initials weren't ours. They read C+E, and while my husband's name was Ethan, mine wasn't Claire. My hand trembled slightly, but I kept smiling. Ethan leaned over and kissed my cheek, whispering words about forever. I whispered back something that made his smile crack. Then I pressed play on the projector screen behind us, showing everyone the real surprise I had prepared. The screen lit up with images nobody expected. Not the romantic montage I had promised. Instead, photos appeared showing Ethan with another woman, another home, another life. The guests gasped as more pictures flashed across the screen. There were children I had never met, birthday parties I never attended, family vacations to places we had never been together. Each image was labeled with dates and locations, proving this wasn't some mistake or misunderstanding. Ethan's face went white as the blood drained from his cheeks. He stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the marble floor. His voice cracked when he shouted, demanding to know who told me about them. The word "them" hung in the air like poison. Our guests sat frozen, their champagne glasses forgotten. I simply smiled and waited for the real show to begin. That's when she walked through the doors. Everyone turned to stare at the woman in the red dress, the same crimson shade I wore to our engagement dinner years ago. She moved through the crowd with purpose, her eyes locked on Ethan, then shifting to me. Her voice carried across the silent room when she spoke. She said Ethan told her I was dead. The gasps from our guests sounded like wind through autumn leaves. I didn't move from my seat. My voice stayed steady when I replied that I was very much alive. Ethan stammered something about misunderstandings, but his words made no sense. The woman stepped closer, introducing herself as Delilah. Her hands shook when she spoke. She asked if I knew what Ethan had told her about me. I invited her to tell everyone. Every phone in that hall was recording now. Delilah's voice broke as she explained how Ethan described me as his late sister. That's how he justified the photos on his phone whenever she questioned him. Our guests looked horrified, some covering their mouths in shock. I turned to face my husband, asking what he said when he proposed to Delilah. He couldn't form words. His mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. I leaned closer and whispered that he should tell the truth because his silence was killing him anyway. He finally spoke, and what he said made everything worse. He muttered that it wasn't just Delilah. There were others. The room erupted in confused murmurs. I asked what he meant by others. He hesitated, sweat beading on his forehead. Then he admitted there was another family in Boston. A woman named Evelyn and her children. I didn't cry when he said it. Deep down, I had already known something was wrong for weeks. Strange bank statements started arriving at our house a month ago, showing transfers to an account under Evelyn Thorne's name. I thought it was business-related at first. Ethan always had complicated investments and partnerships, but the amounts were too personal, too regular. While he claimed to be attending conferences in Boston, he was actually spending weekends with another complete family, a woman and 2 boys who called him Daddy. I looked around the ballroom at our frozen guests and their recording phones. Then I asked Ethan how many vows a man could break before one finally broke him. He said nothing, but Delilah did. She told everyone that Ethan promised she was his only one, that I was cruel and distant. I smiled sadly, explaining that men like him survive by telling people what they need to hear. The ballroom doors burst open with a loud bang that made everyone jump. A young woman walked in holding a small boy's hand. He couldn't have been older than 5 years old. She called out Ethan's name, asking why he ignored her calls all week. The silence became suffocating. Delilah froze beside me. My pulse stayed oddly calm despite everything unraveling. The woman looked around confused, taking in the decorated ballroom and shocked guests. She said Ethan told her he was divorced. She thought tonight was his wedding rehearsal to someone new. The whispers from our guests grew louder. Ethan tried walking toward her, but I stepped between them. I asked her name in a gentle voice. She whispered that she was Evelyn. Of course she was. Evelyn Thorne from the bank statements. I asked how long they had been together. 6 years, she answered. Delilah gasped. She had been with Ethan for 7 years. I looked at Ethan and told him he had been playing chess with human lives while pretending to build a family. He tried speaking, but I raised my hand to stop him. I said that tonight we would count his sins out loud for everyone to witness. Evelyn's son looked up at Ethan with innocent eyes and said one word that shattered everything. Daddy. The lights went out immediately after. Screams echoed through the darkness as glasses shattered on the marble floor. People whispered frantically, and phone flashlights lit up like stars scattered across the room. When the emergency lights flickered back on, Ethan was gone. He had vanished during the confusion. Delilah grabbed my arm, stating the obvious fact that he ran away. But I didn't panic. I had prepared for this possibility. While he spent years lying, I spent months tracking every move he made. I hired a private investigator after finding a message on his tablet signed with just the letter E. I turned to address the crowd calmly, telling them not to worry because Ethan couldn't go far. His car wouldn't start tonight. Delilah blinked in confusion, asking why. I smiled and explained that his car keys were in my purse. The guests gasped again. Then I added quietly that the truth had only just begun to surface. My phone buzzed in my hand with a new message from an unknown number. I opened it to find a video file. Ethan's voice came through my speaker, whispering a message that sent chills down my spine. He said I shouldn't think I had won because I didn't know half of what was really going on. His voice sounded different, almost threatening. I replayed the message while walking through the confused crowd toward the exit. Whatever game Ethan was playing had more layers than I realized. The question was whether I was ready to dig deeper into his deception. Hours later, I stood in our bedroom staring at my reflection in the vanity mirror. The room felt different now, like a crime scene waiting to be investigated. Something caught my eye on the glass surface. Faint handwriting appeared in lipstick that wasn't mine. The message said to check the cabin. I had never owned that shade of red. Maybe it was Evelyn's or someone else I hadn't discovered yet. I opened Ethan's drawer and found a small brass key hidden beneath old receipts. The initials EW were engraved on it. Not his initials, not mine. Another secret hiding within secrets. My hands stayed steady as I held the key. Ethan had hidden his lies in layers, and I planned to peel them back one by one. A notification buzzed on my phone showing a location tracking alert. His car was moving despite having no keys. He must have had a spare set hidden. The GPS showed he was heading toward the same cabin mentioned in the lipstick message. The drive took me through winding roads surrounded by dense pine trees. Rain started falling halfway there, making the dark forest even more ominous. The cabin sat isolated deep in the woods, looking abandoned but somehow alive with secrets. I parked far enough away that my headlights wouldn't give me away. Inside through the window, I could see his jacket draped over a chair. His phone sat charging on a small table. But what caught my attention were the photos pinned across one entire wall. Not just pictures of me. There were photos of Delilah, Evelyn, and the children. And someone else I didn't recognize. An older woman, regal and elegant in every shot. Her name was written beneath each photo in red ink. Margaret Ward. Every picture connected with red string, forming a complex web that led to one word written in the center. Inheritance. That's when I understood. This wasn't about love or passion. It was strategy. Ethan didn't marry for affection. He married for access to wealth and lineage. My phone vibrated with another unknown message. The text was simple and direct. Leave the cabin now. I stepped outside into the rain, my flashlight cutting through the fog. Movement caught my eye near the tree line. I called out Ethan's name, but a different voice answered. A stranger stepped forward wearing gloves and a dark coat. He said I shouldn't have come here. He identified himself as Ethan's accountant, explaining that his instructions were to burn the cabin down if I ever found it. My stomach tightened, but I stood my ground. I asked why he didn't follow through with those orders. He paused before answering that I deserved to see what Ethan had planned for me. He handed me a brown envelope containing financial records, insurance documents, and wills. My name appeared on several papers next to large sums of money. But the beneficiary wasn't me. It was Margaret Ward, the woman from the photos inside. The accountant's next words made my blood run cold. He told me Margaret was the real wife, the first one, and she was still alive. I drove home through the rain with those documents on my passenger seat. Sleep was impossible that night. The name Margaret Ward circled through my mind endlessly. Who was this woman? Why was she collecting our lives like trophies in a display case? At dawn, I contacted my investigator, a man named Jonas Cade, who had helped me gather evidence on Ethan. He worked fast, finding a marriage certificate within hours. The document showed Ethan married Margaret 22 years ago. She was listed as a wealthy heiress who supposedly died in a boating accident 15 years back. But Jonas found recent bank withdrawals from her trust account, all signed by Ethan. Maybe she wasn't dead after all. Maybe she was helping him orchestrate everything. The next photo Jonas showed me confirmed my worst suspicions. The image showed a charity gala from just 1 month ago. Margaret stood alive and smiling in an elegant gown, standing directly beside Ethan. But what made me feel sick was the background. I was there too, visible in the crowd, smiling at the same event. I had been at that fundraiser for a client, never realizing the ghost in the room was my husband's first wife. Margaret's eyes in that photograph weren't warm or friendly. They were watching me like a hawk studies its prey. I zoomed in on the image and noticed she held a wine glass with faint engraving. Warrington Estate. She knew exactly who I was. Jonas leaned over my shoulder and pointed out the obvious. Margaret wasn't hiding from anyone. She was circling me, studying me. I told Jonas to let her come closer. What Margaret didn't know was that she wasn't the only one keeping detailed records of everything happening. Every lie Ethan told, every hidden bank account, every secret message had been documented and saved. I had them all stored safely. Now I had faces to attach to the crimes. If Ethan was the architect of this scheme, then Margaret was clearly the financier providing the money. Together they built a fortress made entirely of lies. But I had become the storm that would tear it all down. That night, a single envelope slid under my front door. No return address, no name. Inside was one typed line. "You're next, Celeste." The threat was clear, but instead of fear, I felt determination. I opened Ethan's old laptop, the one he claimed crashed months ago. I spent hours rebuilding his deleted files bite by bite. Hidden under fake company folders, I discovered something that took my breath away. A spreadsheet labeled Ward Legacy Holdings. My name appeared as an asset with an assigned value, like inventory in a warehouse. Each wife had a number next to her name representing her worth. Each family represented an investment return on paper. And me? My entry read Celeste Lark, asset liquidation pending. The date beside it was our anniversary, the night I exposed him. He hadn't planned a romantic dinner that evening. He had planned my complete erasure from his life. I sat back in my chair, my pulse steady and my mind sharpening into steel. If Ethan saw me as an investment to be liquidated, I would make certain he lost everything with interest. A new email appeared on the laptop screen, sent from his address just moments ago. The message was brief. "See you tonight, darling." I prepared dinner for two, setting the table carefully. When Ethan walked through the door that evening, he looked too calm and polished. I greeted him with a smile that mirrored all his lies perfectly. We talked about meaningless things while I waited for the right moment. At exactly 8 o'clock, the front door opened. Evelyn stepped inside first, her eyes wide with confusion. Then Delilah entered behind her. Both women were dressed nicely, as if expecting a celebration. Ethan's fork froze halfway to his mouth. I spoke softly, explaining that since he loved living double lives, he should experience a double dinner party. The silence that followed felt perfect and suspended in time. Then came heavy knocking at the door. Jonas's signal arrived right on schedule. But before I could move, Ethan whispered something that changed everything. He warned me that I shouldn't have brought them here, because Margaret was coming. The knock wasn't gentle or polite. It was final and authoritative. Margaret Ward walked in with a presence that commanded the entire room. She looked elegant and icy, the kind of woman who could destroy reputations with one phone call. She didn't look at me first. Her eyes studied Evelyn and Delilah before she smiled coldly. Margaret welcomed them to the family with mock warmth in her voice. Ethan's voice cracked when he tried speaking, but Margaret cut him off sharply. She told him he always ruined the fun before dessert arrived. That's when I noticed the ring on her hand. Not a wedding band, but a crest showing Ward Estate Holdings. The same logo from the spreadsheet I found. Margaret wasn't just another wife in Ethan's game. She was the controller, the mastermind behind everything. But there was something she didn't know. Jonas was live streaming every word from his car parked outside. Margaret turned to face me directly, her smile slight and calculating. She said she had been waiting to meet the woman who almost replaced her. Her eyes studied me like I was a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit her plans. She called me intelligent, adding that intelligence was dangerous. Ethan preferred obedient women who didn't ask questions. Ethan shouted for her to stop, but his voice trembled without authority. I poured wine calmly for everyone at the table. I told Margaret she built her empire on deceit, and tonight she would watch it crumble. Margaret laughed softly, asking if I really thought I could undo her work. She explained that every document, every property, every dollar ran through her control. I slid a flash drive across the table toward her. I explained it contained the complete financial trail, now in public hands. Jonas had uploaded everything to a secure server minutes earlier. Margaret's confident face paled for the first time. Ethan whispered, asking what I had done to them. I replied that I simply made sure their empire was now official state evidence. Sirens began echoing in the distance, growing louder. But they weren't police sirens like Margaret probably assumed. I had called the press instead. The living room suddenly felt too bright when the first reporters arrived outside. Camera flashes exploded through the windows like lightning. Margaret tried standing up, but her power was already dissolving in front of the cameras. Ethan shouted at the reporters to leave, his face showing pure rage and panic. The women beside him, Evelyn and Delilah, finally saw the complete truth laid bare before them. I spoke clearly, my voice cutting through the chaos. I told everyone this was what deception looked like when it fed on love. I called it my gift, an anniversary to remember forever. Jonas stepped inside with his camera, filming the entire confrontation. Margaret muttered that I would regret my actions. I smiled faintly, correcting her. This wasn't regret, it was revelation. Outside, a news helicopter hovered overhead providing live coverage. Inside, the man who built double lives now had none left. But as I turned to leave the room, I caught sight of something on Margaret's wrist. A small tattoo of interlocking rings. And, beneath the design, a single letter. The letter C. I froze in place, staring at that tattoo. The letter wasn't for Celeste. It stood for Cassandra, my older sister's name. After the chaos settled, I locked myself in my office. My hands shook, not from fear, but from recognition. Cassandra had vanished 5 years ago after our parents' estate scandal. She said she wanted nothing to do with lies anymore. So, why was her initial permanently marked on Margaret's skin? I pulled out old letters my sister sent me years ago. Each one was signed with the same looped letter C. That same handwriting appeared in the footer of Ward Legacy Holdings documents. My sister hadn't disappeared from the world. She had simply rebranded herself under a new identity. Margaret Ward wasn't a stranger at all. She was Cassandra Lark hiding under a carefully constructed false name. And I had just destroyed my own sister's criminal empire without knowing it. My phone buzzed with an encrypted message from an unknown sender marked only as MW. The text was brief and chilling. The message read that little sisters always ruin birthdays and we should finish what we started years ago. She chose our meeting location carefully. A quiet garden cafe at the edge of the city, all glass walls and hidden corners. When I saw her sitting there, I almost didn't recognize my own sister. Cassandra, or Margaret as she called herself now, wore power like expensive perfume. Her hair was sleek and professional. Her posture radiated confidence. She commented that I had been busy lately. I replied that she built a cult based entirely on lies, using me as her test subject. She smiled and sipped her coffee slowly. She claimed she gave me purpose, that pain sharpened me into something stronger. She actually said I should thank her. Her words felt like poison crawling under my skin. I asked why she chose Ethan specifically. She leaned closer, explaining he was never really mine. He belonged to her game from the beginning. Some men were lovers in her schemes, others were pawns. Ethan played both roles perfectly. My chest burned with anger when she admitted destroying my life for sport. But Cassandra corrected me coldly. She wasn't playing games. She was building a legacy, and I had just made her famous. She slid a sealed envelope across the cafe table. Inside was a photograph of me shaking hands with a man I didn't recognize. His name was Victor Hale, according to the caption. He was apparently a corporate ghost linked to international money laundering rings. If this photo leaked publicly, it would bury me under the same accusations I exposed Cassandra for. She wasn't trying to win back her power. She was rewriting the entire story, framing me as the architect behind everything. Back home, I examined the photo under every possible light. It looked completely real, too perfect to be obviously fake. Jonas traced the image metadata and discovered it was scheduled to release in 48 hours on major international media channels. I had less than 2 days before becoming the villain of my own revenge story. I needed a counterstrike planned immediately. For that, I had to confront the one person who always knew both of us better than we knew ourselves. Our mother. When I called her number, the voice that answered wasn't hers. Ethan spoke instead. He told me I was too late because my mother was already with them. The gates to our family's old estate hadn't opened in years, but they did for me that day. Inside, the air smelled like decay and buried secrets. My mother sat in her old chair looking pale and terrified. Ethan stood behind her with his hands in his pockets. He said she didn't know anything about Cassandra's plans. None of them did. Cassandra planned everything, including manipulating me. I asked why he was helping my sister now. He smiled faintly, explaining that Cassandra helped him first. He was supposed to destroy me completely, not fall in love with me. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small black flash drive. Ethan placed the drive on the table between us. He said everything I needed to ruin Cassandra was stored on it. But I wouldn't like what I found inside. Before I could respond, he added that I was her experiment from the start. He was just the control group in her study. He left without another word, disappearing into the old estate's shadows. When I opened the drive on my laptop, the first video file was labeled Project Seraphim, Subject 02, Celeste Lark. I watched the footage in complete silence. Cassandra's voice narrated over grainy recordings of me going about my daily life. At work, at home, even sleeping in my bed. She had been tracking me for years without my knowledge. The files documented tests on emotional endurance, manipulation response, and behavioral control. I was treated like a laboratory subject in some twisted psychological experiment. Each stage ended with her voice, saying I was almost ready. Jonas sat beside me, speechless. He finally spoke, explaining that Cassandra used my entire life as a case study in revenge conditioning. She wasn't just building a criminal empire. She was documenting human cruelty, as if it were art. She turned my pain into data points on a spreadsheet. But then I found something unexpected buried in the files. A list of future subjects for her experiments. The first name listed was Ethan Ward. The second was Jonas Cade, my investigator. The third entry read Celeste Lark, Final Phase, Ascension. That's when I realized the horrible truth. The experiment wasn't finished. I was still trapped inside it, playing my role perfectly. My phone rang, and the caller identification read Cassandra, Phase 2 commencing. When I answered, her voice sounded unhurried and calm, like a conductor preparing the final movement of a symphony. She told me not to run because I would ruin her experiment. She wanted me to meet her at the observatory, the same rooftop where Ethan proposed to me years ago. I went, not out of obedience to her commands, but out of strategy. I needed to end this game on my terms, not hers, once and for all. If you were in my place, would you have saved her? I still ask myself that some nights, when the world feels quiet and the scars start whispering. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to hear how another story of betrayal turned into redemption, click the end screen. You're not done watching yet. Thanks for watching.